Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So here we meet again today. Today we're going to be discussing the importance of communication and in relationships and uh, with relationships. So basically, what we'll be doing here is we'll be looking at different perspectives, different dimensions surrounding relationships, and how communication affects it. Again, today we have Mr. Hemant here with me and Mr. Anupam Singh. Hi, Anupam. Hello, Hemant.
Hi.
Hello, Rahul.
Hi. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, guys.
Good morning.
Yes. All right. Hemant, I would like you to tell me what you think is the basic nature of communication and human relations. How do you think that they function?
Yes, actually, it's like this. The communication actually determines the relationship, whether it is between a parent and a child, or between a seller and a customer, or between a leader and his subordinates. So, the tone of the communication is very important, and also the kind of language that you use. So, if you speak very positively, even if you are trying to scold a person, but if you do it in such a way that it is motivating to the listener, it has definitely that relationship. Traditionally, India, as you know, it is very famous for the Guru Shishya Parambara, or the Guru Shishya relationship. So, how that is built up is basically based on the communication. So, communication definitely has a very important role in building relationships between husband and wife, between, as I said the earlier two examples also. So that makes or breaks a relationship, definitely. Example would be, say, even a husband and wife. Today we are seeing divorces happening more, even in India, than what it was previously, because the woman has also become very career oriented, and uh, the women are doing very well as far as their education qualifications are concerned. So, what is happening is, in many relationships, divorces are happening because of communication gap. So, I think there is hardly any communication. I would say that there is hardly any communication, because technology, though it has got its plus points, I think it has also got to do some play a role in the relationship between husbands and wives not being to the level that it should be. So, even so, if the communication, if there is an open relationship or open communication, definitely uh, people will be able to develop their relationship and take it to a next different level. So this is what I have to say as far as my
Very
take
interesting.
on.
Very interesting. Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. I do agree with you on this. But if we were to bifurcate human relationships, let's say between a husband and between spouses, between a parent and a child, between a boss and an employee. In this particular situation, how do you think, like Anupam, do you feel maybe there would be a difference in communication? Do you think that there would be some form of a difference in the way that we need to communicate, or do you think that there is something that unites them all and makes all these various aspects similar?
Um, and this, the communications between different people will have different effects, or we will take the communication in a different way if we are talking to our spouses, or maybe if we are talking to our bosses. Our communication, the way we communicate, will be different, of course. But I think what has happened nowadays is, like Hemant was saying, we take actually our own family members for granted, and we do not feel the way we communicate with others. Maybe when we are in a corporate life, when we are in office, we talk in a certain way, and when we are at home, we don't feel that empathy when we are talking to our maybe our family members. And it has happened to me. This is my personal experience, where I take a note and how should I speak to people when I am outside my home, and the way I speak at home, it's almost completely different. So but I feel that the best way to do or to manage these things is, let's take in a positive way that we should behave at home as well, that we are dealing with some colleagues or maybe a person who is completely new. The way we feel the empathy towards others, and we listen them properly, and then we give our wholehearted interest in what they are trying to speak or what they are trying to communicate. At home, we become lazy, we do not talk many times with our kids also. Sometimes we are busy, we take our phones out and something we do that way. I think we should also make a habit that we should be able to speak the way we are speaking to our outside people also, because we are very careful on choosing our words, but at home we are not, although not on a negative sense, but that we do not have to consider our family members as outsiders, but in a way that we give full attention to the people. If we are speaking to maybe a stranger or someone, we should sometimes take also a step back at our home as well and think about what the way we speak to strangers or maybe a person whom we want to be of interest also. And like you said, yes, of course there will be a difference in communication at office. They are colleagues, then they are bosses, and I think this is the baseline of what how we should communicate with others. And I think everyone in this world should have communication lessons during our schools, because in that way we will understand that how we should behave at home, at outside, and how we have to be polite when we are doing some requests, and how should be our tonal quality will be there. Because if you know, we have a theoretical concept in our school systems, but these kind of practical sessions never happens. We generally have language classes and those things, but these kind of sessions which would improve our oral communication and would make life much more easier. Because I think communication is a form where if you are able to do speak well, or the way you want to convince others, half of the things are generally you can win any topic or anything, any task that you have in your hand. So yeah, this is my opinion on this.
It's a very interesting opinion, actually, Anupam. I do appreciate what you felt in terms of, there being a difference between the various layers of communication or the various situations that you find yourself communicating in. That's very true, very true. But at times, I do feel that there is something that connects communication all across. So even the way that you communicate with your dog and the way that you communicate with maybe your manager and the way that you communicate with your friends or anybody like that, there is a difference because there is a kind of situational difference. But at the same time, there seems to be some kind of thing that unites them. And I personally feel that listening, staying back, empathizing, and listening is a uniting factor right across all these various environments or channels of communication. I would like to hear Hemant's opinion on this, and if you could just let me know what you think communication and listening or empathizing and things like that, how you think, I mean, rather, it would affect, these various channels. So how do you think that these channels, like channels, when I say channels, I mean these situational differences, how you think across these situational differences, the concept of empathizing and listening can assist in
Yes,
communicating.
yeah, definitely. Well, listening is very, very, very important. Because, and I think more than normally, communication is misunderstood as just talking. But I think listening is more important than talking. Yes, you have to talk, but if you are a good listener and if you listen very well, I think the answers that you give will be more clear, and the listener will also you'll also be able to bring about a change in the listener. But it is easier said than done, because listening is not that easy. In the sense, you'll have to. It is easy. And it will become easy if you constantly practice. You'll have to develop that skill. And there, I think the ego is very important. It plays a major part. As my dear friend Anupam was also saying, what happens is, as you said, when you post a question to Anupam regarding the type of communication between, say, a boss, between a superior and his subordinate in an organization, between spouses, and say between a parent and a child. So, uh, situations, what happens is, in today's situation, ego plays a very major factor. If you take the case of husband and wife, and I'm saying in today's context, in India, where the wife is also working, and it may be a case where the wife is in a better position than the husband in terms of her position in the company. So naturally, ego plays the big part. And as Anupam said, the same kind of tone that she speaks in the organization, she brings it to the there. Maybe she may be more alert because there again she'll be reporting to people higher up. But when she comes home, she feels it can be he also, even the husband. If he's in a better position, and more so if the wife is a housewife, then the ego plays a very major part, and that is when communication doesn't happen effectively, and listening also doesn't happen. So when the ego takes over, you fail to listen
So the
because
sounds
you
of the ego are so loud that the ears cannot direct any other noise to the brain or any
Yeah,
other
very
music to
interesting
the
point.
brain.
yes,
Yeah, a very
Yes,
interesting
very
point
yes,
by
interesting.
yes,
Hemant, Rahul. That I have a question now here for Rahul. How do we tackle these kind of situations where, like Hemant said, the case where the maybe the wife is a superior or maybe is a higher position in a same organization if they are both are working, she is very well placed and the person the husband is not well placed or maybe is a subordinate or in at a junior position. So how do you tackle these things at
I,
home?
okay, I will tell you a little story. Okay, before we go ahead. The thing is that many years ago, all right, there was a young prince. This is a real story, okay, and you'll come to know who this prince is. There was a young prince, arrogant, sure of himself. His father was a conqueror, and he was uniting the tribes of his region. This prince, one day while walking, happened to see a bunch of commanders that he knew who were under his father's army, soldiers and other men who had a long history of dealing with horses, trying to tame a particular horse. So they kept jumping on the horse, and the horse threw all of them, highly experienced horse riders, off its back. So it refused. It was a strong young horse, and it absolutely refused to have them on its back. So they all tried one after the other, and they didn't know how to handle this particular horse. So Alexander took a look at this. I mean, sorry, I've given away the name, but anyway, this prince took a look at the horse, and he realized, he kept watching it. He stood back and he tried to understand why this particular horse was doing what it was doing. And he noticed that every time the shadows of the generals or the people were falling on its eyes, it was becoming afraid. And it was because of this that the horse did not allow them to ride on its back. So he moved the horse to a particular location where shadows or certain things were not falling on its eyes, and he got on the horseback, on the horse's back. After that, that particular horse became his sole companion in war for, I think, as long as he fought to the bitter end, to the end. The horse was with him. So he held that horse as his prize. He held that horse as his prize because that horse was the first and the major and the most important uh, thing that he had conquered. And he conquered it by empathizing with the horse. So in your question, Anupam, as I've already given you the name of the emperor, I'm not going to ask you because now you know it's Alexander. So basically, what has happened here is when the husband and the wife have ego clashes and are incapable of understanding one another, before they start talking, they should step back, or after they argue, because that might be the starting point, like the horse was throwing people off their back. After the first initial arguments, you should go back, take a deep breath, and begin the process of empathizing. This is the starting of good communication. Listening in. Why would she have said that? Or why would he have said that? There must be something from that side rather than just reacting. Okay. So, beginning your process like Alexander did, where he stood back and he watched the horse for a period of time is the same thing that you have to do here with your relationships when it comes to listening or trying to understand or trying to actually conquer the situation that you find yourself in. Because if you conquer the situation, like that horse became Alexander's best friend throughout the years, whatever it is that your relationships that you're trying to forge can be the most powerful and potent relationships you make for the rest of your time. You need the process. It has a slight scientific kind of fervor to it, a kind of touch to it, isn't it? When you think about it, you step back, you watch, you are trying to understand. So now that might be a little difficult because you're driving and you have a lot of emotions that are charging within you. But if you, like in all other condition situations, if you inculcate a habit to understand that I don't want to just rush through with my emotions are important, they're valid. If I'm angry, I'll definitely show my anger at some point. Otherwise, people might not understand that I didn't like it. I appreciate all of that. But first, step back and try to understand what's happening. That's real listening. That's the start of real good communication, as was the case with Alexander and his horse. Yeah. Any other questions, maybe, Anupam? Do you have
Yes.
anything you would like to ask me with
Interesting story.
regards to this?
Thanks for bringing out that story. I think.
Okay.
So
It's
I
a
have
very
another
famous
question.
story.
Yes,
It's
yes.
a
I
very
have
famous
another
story.
question for you. Like you said, communication plays very important role, and like Ahmed also pointed out, we when we talk about communication, we majorly focus only on the speaking part. But what about if you're communicating through non-verbal media or maybe a written media, maybe in a digital form? So how do we make sure that the things that we want to communicate with people who are reading or maybe who are consuming our content, that they agree with us or maybe get inspired or get motivated or get the right thought that we are trying to say with our content?
Actually, when you what the way that you can get them to get the right thought is that you have to understand your audience. All right. Again, a listening process happens.
The standing
One
audience.
is that you have to understand your audience. You have to know who you're talking to, how they view the world, what is the kind of things that they would be, the symbols, the ideas that they would have, or the way that they would look at life altogether. All right. So that is a very important aspect because if you go to certain cultures, you cannot show certain things and hope to get an understanding. Like if you go perhaps to let's say, some country in Europe or something, and describe your stories with people who are from the East, it may be difficult for them to completely digest symbols of these, like perhaps the clothing, the attire, things like that. All right. So we need to focus on who our audience is, first of all, understand our general audience. And based on that, we need, secondly, to understand that we have to generate a kind of authentic feel. All right, to be authentic about who we are, we have to allow ourselves to be natural. All right, to be spontaneous. Allow ourselves to release that feel factor. Feel yourself. So basically, it's first feel your audience, know who your audience is, feel them, see who they are, try to understand them, visualize them, and then try to understand exactly what it is that I want to do and be spontaneous about
But and now,
that.
yeah.
The method of releasing a tonal quality. When since now you're writing, what happens is that you begin to analyze the way that you're going to arrange your words, the kind of words that you'll be using, the kind of symbols that you'll be using, and things like that would come into your word pattern and your word format. Uh, there. So in terms of body language, again, if you're looking at body language, in these cases, body language is a discipline. So it's a little different from writing. Body language involves a kind of discipline or over your body. Uh, you would probably have to build that kind of a discipline, all right, with whoever it is you're dealing. And body language is much more natural. So it's not going to take the same effect that writing will have, all right, in the case of writing. But you'll have to understand how to build that particular discipline when it comes to body language. But with writing, if you are able to, uh, you know, do these things that I'm telling you, you'll begin to find that your word patterns, the way that you structure your sentences, all are formed accordingly. they form accordingly with a natural way in which your audience can feel what you're trying to say and get what you're trying to say. One of the good things about writing is that your audience has the opportunity to go back to it. So he can go back once or twice to really get the gist of what it is you're saying. Okay. So that is something very important. Yeah. And yes, Heyman,
Yes, so
anything from you?
as we were talking about listening, it's
Yes, yes,
importance of
yes.
listening and its relationship with communication. So it plays, as you also rightly said, it plays a very major part. If you are a good listener, definitely you will be able to analyze the person who is listening to you much better, his behavioral patterns, what he's expecting, and
Right,
then
right,
yeah, and then accordingly you can give your answer. Your answers or this your communication will be more mature.
right, right,
So
right.
yes,
I feel
because as
that,
we have,
like, uh,
yes,
right, exactly. Listening becomes like one of the most important things when we're communicating, and it works across various types of relationships. Like we just mentioned, the horse. We mentioned the relationship with your spouse. We mentioned the relationship with your audience while you're writing. See, even when you're with your audience while you're writing, you find that you have to listen in, you have to visualize them, you have to understand them. That's all part of the process of this. Okay. So, like you rightly said, very crucial across situations that we learn how, and across different kinds of relationships that we learn how to listen, empathize, perhaps visualize, step away from our emotions for a moment or two. Even though we may have to release it at some point, we take a breath. Take a breath and think, what is the reason? Be like Alexander, because Alexander was a small man, yet he conquered the whole world. He was not a very big man in size, but he conquered the whole world because he was able to listen. He was able to look into what was happening in front of him. So I feel those qualities are very important for you to be able to communicate much better. Yeah. So I think today we will end this session, and I will ask all our audience that if you enjoy what it is we're doing here, please do subscribe to this channel and join us, learn how to communicate better. We will be coming with other topics as well, other than just communication, but we hope to focus on communication a little bit more. Anyway, I'll see all of you guys later on. Yeah, take care. Have a good day. Bye
Thank
bye.
you, Rahul. Thank you,
thank
Emma.
you.
We will meet again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was a nice session and look forward
Thank
to people subscribing to this channel and getting value. It's, thank you.
you. Yes, yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Yes.